Take a dirt nap. 3 words sent in a private message that would end a career. When those words surfaced in 2021, they didn't just expose one celebrity's cruelty. They revealed a pattern of bullying that Hollywood had ignored for years. The sender? Chrissy Teigen, the model and television personality who had built an empire on being relatable and real. The recipient? Courtney Stodden, who had been a teenage bride when Teigen publicly and privately tormented them. For years, Teigen had gotten away with it. The media loved her. Brands lined up to work with her. She was untouchable until she wasn't. And now, in 2024, as both her career and reputation lay in ruins, she's found an unlikely ally. Someone who understands what it's like to be dragged constantly by people who don't know you. Someone who also claims to be a victim of media persecution while evidence suggests otherwise. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has made Chrissy Teigen her new best friend. What do these two women really want from each other? Join us as we uncover the most telling friendship in Hollywood, a union that reveals everything about fame, fall from grace, and the desperate scramble to stay relevant when the world has moved on. It all began quietly, unnoticed by most who follow celebrity culture. In late 2024, eagle-eyed observers noticed something peculiar. Chrissy Teigen had appeared on Meghan Markle's Netflix cooking show With Love, Meghan in an episode that aired as part of the second series. The appearance seemed random at first. Teigen's star had faded dramatically since her cancellation 3 years earlier. She was hardly the A-list draw that would make sense for a show desperately trying to prove its cultural relevance. But then came the whispers from Montecito. Rob Shooter, a veteran entertainment reporter who runs The Scoop on Substack, broke the story in December 2024. In a piece titled Meghan Markle's Shock New Bestie, Mean Girl Chrissy Teigen, Shooter revealed what insiders had been noticing for months. The two women weren't just professional acquaintances, they had become genuinely close friends. Insiders tell Scoop that Meghan Markle has officially added Chrissy Teigen to her inner circle, Shooter wrote. The Duchess of Sussex and the outspoken model have grown shockingly close, bonding over motherhood, media pressure, and what one source calls being dragged constantly by people who don't know you. The revelation was stunning for those who had followed Meghan's pattern of cutting off friends at the first sign of scandal. Jessica Mulroney, Meghan's supposed best friend and bridesmaid stylist, had been unceremoniously dumped in June 2020 after being accused of racist behavior toward black influencer Sasha Exeter. Meghan had maintained a relationship with Harvey Weinstein's wife, Georgina Chapman, even after the Me Too revelations, only distancing herself when the optics became too damaging. She had ditched childhood friends, college roommates, and former co-stars without apparent hesitation. Yet Chrissy Teigen, whose past was documented in her own tweets and direct messages, was welcomed with open arms. According to Shooter's sources, the pair have been spotted having private Montecito lunches and exchanging cheeky messages in celebrity mom chats. Another insider provided more details. They get each other. Chrissy is blunt, Meghan is honest, and neither of them trusts the media. The friendship was confirmed through multiple channels. People magazine, which has long served as an unofficial PR outlet for the Sussexes, ran favorable coverage. Sources close to both women began speaking on background to various outlets. And most tellingly, those in what remains of Meghan's inner circle began expressing concern. Chrissy's baggage is a PR minefield, one source warned in Shooter's report. But Meghan doesn't care. She chooses real people over perfect ones. That last quote was particularly revealing. It suggested that Meghan viewed Teigen's documented cruelty, her public bullying of a teenager, her vicious attacks on multiple women, as authenticity rather than abuse. It positioned both women as victims of a culture that demands perfection rather than perpetrators of genuine harm. Most importantly, it showed that Meghan had learned nothing from her own scandals about staffing treatment, media manipulation, and the gap between public persona and private behavior. But to understand why these two women found each other at this particular moment, we need to look back at who they were before their worlds collided. We need to examine the paths that led them both to Montecito lunches and mutual commiseration. We need to understand not just what they've become, but what they've always been. Chrissy Teigen was born Christine Diane Teigen on November 30th, 1985, in Delta, Utah. Her father was of Norwegian descent, her mother Thai. She grew up between Washington State and California, discovered by a photographer while working at a surf shop in Huntington Beach. By the mid-2000s, she was modeling professionally, appearing in Sports Illustrated's swimsuit issue, and eventually landing on the cover in 2014. But Teigen's real breakthrough wasn't her modeling, it was her personality, or rather, the personality she crafted for social media. On Twitter, she positioned herself as refreshingly honest, hilariously self-deprecating, willing to say what everyone was thinking. She live-tweeted award shows with snarky commentary. She shared seemingly unfiltered glimpses of her life. She built an army of devoted followers who saw her as one of us, just a regular person who happened to be famous and married to Grammy-winning artist John Legend. The marriage to Legend, which took place on September 14, 2013, in Lake Como, Italy, was crucial to Teigen's brand. Legend was respected, talented, genuinely accomplished. His success gave Teigen credibility by association. She became a fixture at high-profile events, interviewed on red carpets not about her own work but about her relationship and her Twitter feed. She published cookbooks. She became a co-host on the talk show Lip Sync Battle. She launched product lines. She was everywhere. Royal commentator Brittany from the Royal News Network noted the appeal Teigen held for aspiring celebrities in the early 2010s. Chrissy was at her peak, at her height. She had snared John Legend. She represented what a lot of women in Hollywood wanted: fame without having to have a particular talent, influence through personality rather than achievement. And that's exactly what attracted Meghan Markle. In the early 2010s, Meghan was struggling to break through in Hollywood. She'd landed a supporting role on the USA Network legal drama Suits in 2011, but it was cable television, not prestige. She was recognizable in certain circles but not famous. She ran a lifestyle blog called The Tig, trying to position herself as an influencer before influencer culture had fully crystallized. She attended parties, networked relentlessly, and studied women like Teigen who had managed to turn personality into a career. "We forget that Meghan really looked up to Chrissy Teigen for a long time," Brittany explained. "She thought, I'm a deal or no deal girl too. I can achieve this too." The reference was to Meghan's brief stint as a briefcase model on the game show Deal or No Deal from 2006 to 2007, the same kind of modeling work Teigen had done before her breakthrough. For years, they existed in parallel universes, Teigen in the A-list stratosphere, married to a megastar, building her empire. Meghan on the outside, working the angles, waiting for her big break. That break came not from Hollywood but from England, in the form of Prince Harry. The story of Harry and Meghan's relationship has been told countless times, but what's often overlooked is how Meghan's approach to that relationship mirrored Teigen's playbook. Both women understood that in the modern media landscape, you didn't need traditional accomplishment, you needed narrative control. You needed to make people feel like they knew you, like you were sharing your authentic self, even as you carefully curated every detail. When Meghan began dating Harry in July 2016, she continued posting on social media and the Tig for months, offering glimpses that seemed candid but were calculated. A photo of flowers with the caption "swooning over these." A picture of two bananas cuddling, # love people. She was building intrigue, controlling her story, just as Teigen had done. But where Meghan and Teigen's paths truly intersected was in their response to criticism. Both women developed a particular pattern: position yourself as authentic and honest, attack anyone who questions that authenticity as a hater or worse, claim victimhood when held accountable, and find allies who will validate your narrative rather than challenge your behavior. For Teigen, this pattern became impossible to sustain when the receipts started surfacing. In May 2021, Courtney Stodden, who identifies as non-binary, gave an interview to the Daily Beast about their experience being married at 16 to 51-year-old actor Doug Hutchison. The marriage had made Stodden a tabloid target in 2011 and 2012, subjected to mockery and sexualization by media and celebrities alike. Among those celebrities was Chrissy Teigen. Stodden revealed that Teigen had publicly tweeted at them to kill themselves and had sent private messages encouraging them to take a dirt nap, industry slang for dying. She wouldn't just publicly tweet about wanting me to take a dirt nap, but would privately DM me and tell me to kill myself, Stodden said. Things like, "I can't wait for you to die." The revelation was devastating because it contradicted everything Teigen's brand represented. This wasn't snarky commentary or honest opinions. This was targeted harassment of a teenager in an abusive situation. And it wasn't an isolated incident. Old tweets began resurfacing. Teigen had publicly mocked Lindsay Lohan's self-harm scars. She'd called then 16-year-old Courtney Stodden a whore. She'd made cruel comments about Farrah Abraham. The pattern was undeniable. Teigen, who presented herself as an advocate for mental health and kindness, had spent years viciously attacking vulnerable women, often very young women, for entertainment. The public response was swift. Brands dropped her. Bloomingdale's and Macy's ended partnerships. Target stopped carrying her cookware line. She resigned from a Netflix show. The woman who had built her career on being real was exposed as a bully who had weaponized her platform against people with far less power. Teigen issued a lengthy apology on Medium on June 14, 2021. "I was a troll, full stop," she wrote. "And I am so sorry." She claimed she had changed, that she was ashamed of who she'd been. But the apology rang hollow to many, especially given that she'd previously defended some of the offensive tweets as jokes. "There is simply no excuse for my past horrible tweets," Teigen continued. "My targets didn't deserve them. No one does. Many of them needed empathy, kindness, understanding, and support, not my meanness masquerading as a kind of casual, edgy humor." What Teigen didn't acknowledge was the power dynamic. She hadn't been casually tweeting hot takes. She'd been a celebrity with millions of followers targeting vulnerable individuals, often minors or young adults in exploitative situations. The cruelty wasn't edgy humor. It was punching down, systematically and repeatedly. Royal biographer Tom Quinn noted the similarities to Meghan's pattern. Both women claim to be victims of unfair treatment while evidence shows they've treated others badly. Both position their critics as haters who don't understand them. Both demand grace they haven't extended to others. For 3 years, Teigen largely disappeared from public life. She had more children with legend, twins born via surrogate in June 2023. She posted occasionally on social media, sharing family moments and cooking content. But the major brand partnerships were gone. The cultural cachet had evaporated. She'd been canceled, and unlike some canceled celebrities who managed to rebuild, her rehabilitation stalled. By late 2024, Teigen was stuck in limbo, not famous enough to command the attention she once had, but too notorious to fade into comfortable obscurity. She needed allies. She needed someone who understood what it felt like to be, as she might put it, unfairly maligned by a media that refused to forgive. She found that someone in Meghan Markle. But was Meghan really the fellow victim Teigen saw her as? Let's take a closer look at the Duchess's own pattern of behavior and the accusations that have followed her from Hollywood to Kensington Palace to Montecito. The bullying allegations against Meghan Markle first surfaced publicly in March 2021, just days before her Oprah interview aired. The Times of London reported that Meghan had faced a bullying complaint made in October 2018 by Jason Knauf, then Communications Secretary to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. According to the Times, Knauf's complaint alleged that Meghan had driven 2 personal assistants out of the household and was undermining the confidence of a third staff member. The report quoted unnamed sources describing Meghan's treatment of staff as totally unacceptable and claiming she was a bully. Meghan's representatives denied the allegations strongly. The Duchess is saddened by this latest attack on her character, particularly as someone who has been the target of bullying herself and is deeply committed to supporting those who have experienced pain and trauma, a spokesperson said. Buckingham Palace announced it would investigate the claims. "We are clearly very concerned about allegations in the Times following claims made by former staff of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex," the statement read. "Accordingly, our HR team will look into the circumstances outlined in the article. Members of staff involved at the time, including those who have left the household, will be invited to participate to see if lessons can be learned." That investigation concluded in June 2022, but the results were never made public. The palace said it had reviewed the circumstances but would not publish details, citing a desire to protect the privacy of those involved. The opacity fueled speculation on both sides. Supporters claimed this proved the allegations were unfounded. Critics argued the palace was covering up to avoid further scandal. But the Times investigation had included specific, detailed accounts. Sources described Meghan reducing grown adults to tears, sending emails at all hours demanding immediate responses, and creating an atmosphere of fear. One source told the paper, "I can't stop shaking. I am very concerned that the Duchess was able to bully 2 PAs out of the household in the past year. She is bullying Y and seeking to undermine her confidence. We have had report after report from people who have witnessed unacceptable behavior towards name withheld." Valentine Lowe, the royal correspondent who broke the story, later published a book called Courtiers, The Hidden Power Behind the Crown, that provided more context. According to Lowe's reporting, staff members who worked for Meghan described a pattern of intense demands, shifting expectations, and responses that they found demeaning when those expectations weren't met. The allegations weren't limited to palace staff. Melissa Tubati, Meghan's personal assistant who resigned during the Australian tour in October 2018, reportedly left after just 6 months despite being highly regarded professionally. Samantha Cohen, the Queen's former assistant private secretary who agreed to help the Sussexes, stayed for 18 months, but later described the experience as challenging in ways that differed from her previous royal roles. What was telling, noted royal author Robert Lacey, was the pattern. Multiple staff members, including some who'd worked for other royals without issue, found Meghan uniquely difficult. That suggests the problem wasn't royal protocol or palace culture. It was a specific management style that these professional, experienced people found untenable. Meghan's defenders, including those who spoke to Omid Scobie for his book Finding Freedom, painted a different picture. They described a woman frustrated by an institution that resisted change, staff members loyal to the way things have always been done, and a culture that refused to accommodate a biracial American woman who had different ideas about public service. In Meghan's own words during the Oprah interview, she described feeling unsupported. "I came to understand that not only was I not being protected, but that they were willing to lie to protect other members of the family. But they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect me and my husband." The tension between these narratives, bullying boss versus frustrated reformer, has never been resolved. What is clear is that Meghan's time as a working royal was marked by unprecedented staff turnover and that multiple people who worked closely with her chose to leave their positions. And this pattern, interestingly, extended beyond her royal life. In Hollywood, Meghan had a reputation for being professionally demanding. Former Suits crew members, speaking anonymously, described her as someone who knew exactly what she wanted and wasn't shy about making that known. This was often framed positively as evidence of her professionalism and high standards, but some who worked with her noted that the line between exacting and difficult could be thin. Royal commentator Brittany drew the connection. "When it comes to Meghan and Chrissy, they have a lot in common. They both have massive PR baggage. Both of them have very different but really challenging public personas. And they both position themselves as victims while evidence suggests they've treated others poorly." The comparison goes deeper than just allegations. Both women built brands on authenticity while being accused of manipulation. Both claimed to support women while being accused of targeting women with cruelty or poor treatment. Both demanded accountability from institutions, the monarchy for Meghan, the media industry for Teigen, while resisting accountability for their own actions. Their friendship, revealed in late 2024, suggested they saw in each other not warning signs but kindred spirits. They were, in their minds, two women who dared to be honest, who refused to play by outdated rules, who were being punished for their strength and independence. Critics saw something else entirely. Two bullies who had finally found each other. Throughout 2024, evidence of the deepening friendship accumulated. Beyond the lunches in Montecito and the messages in celebrity mom chat groups, there were professional overlaps. Teigen's appearance on With Love, Meghan wasn't just a random booking. According to entertainment industry sources, Meghan had specifically requested her, overriding concerns from Netflix producers who worried about the optics. "Chrissy was the biggest name Meghan could get on her show," Brittany observed, "which demonstrates how little people like her It's telling that someone who's been effectively canceled was the best guest Meghan could land for her cooking show. The show itself had been a disaster. Released on December 12, 2024, With Love, Meghan was positioned as Meghan's lifestyle brand launch, a preview of the products and aesthetic she'd be selling through her company American Riviera Orchard. But the reviews were brutal, even from typically sympathetic outlets. The Hollywood Reporter called it desperately hollow. Variety questioned its reason for existing, but more damningly, Netflix itself seemed to distance from the project. The streaming giant didn't feature it prominently on its homepage. There was minimal promotional support, and just 24 hours before it dropped, Netflix released a documentary about Sean Diddy Combs' legal troubles, which dominated viewing and conversation. Entertainment journalist Rob Shooter noted the deliberate nature of this positioning. Netflix is actually telling the world, "Don't worry, we don't believe in this. We haven't put it on our homepage. We're not bigging up the products. Oh, and by the way, we're going to release our big Diddy documentary 24 hours beforehand, and that's what everyone's going to be watching." The viewing numbers told the story. According to data released in late December 2024, With Love, Meghan had been watched for approximately 4.3 million hours globally in its first week. That sounds impressive until you compare it to Netflix's typical successful releases, which often hit 100 million hours or more. For a show starring a former member of the British royal family, it was a catastrophic underperformance. More tellingly, Netflix included a visible timestamp in the show, Meghan's Beagle Guy, who had died in January 2024. Guy appeared throughout the series, alive and well. To industry insiders, this was a deliberate signal that the content had been filmed nearly a year earlier and was being dumped onto the platform to fulfill contractual obligations. Not because Netflix believed in its success. There's no reason that normal people watching this should notice Meghan's dog and realize that she announced it had died in January, Shooter explained. But for people within the industry, it's a very useful way for Netflix to point at it and say, "Look, actually, we just filmed all this at one go. It was just one extra day or two of filming, which didn't really cost us very much." The failure of the show, combined with the earlier collapse of her Spotify deal and the underwhelming performance of her lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard, left Meghan in a position she'd never experienced before, genuinely irrelevant. Not hated, not controversial, just unimportant to the cultural conversation. American Riviera Orchard, launched with great fanfare in March 2024, had become a punchline. The brand sold jam, reportedly for £14 per jar, available only through exclusive outlets like Soho House and Godmother's Bookstore in Summerland, California. These weren't major retailers. They were boutique locations connected to Meghan's personal network. This whole idea of Meghan going back to Soho House is really, really pathetic, Brittany noted. Marcus Anderson, who's head of their PR, is her best friend. So it's like her setting up shop in her best friend's office. She didn't get there because her products are good. She got there because she knows upper management. Traffic data for the American Riviera Orchard website, released by brand intelligence platform SimilarWeb in November 2024, was equally damning. In October 2024, the site had just 196,831 monthly visits. By comparison, Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, which had not been in headlines and was considered past its peak, had 812,000 visits. American Riviera Orchard generated 746,000 page views compared to 2.3 million for Goop. Even more revealing, 20% of visitors to American Riviera Orchard were referred by People magazine, suggesting that without favorable press coverage, the site would have virtually no organic traffic. When American Riviera Orchard ran a site-wide 20% off sale in late November 2024, it paled in comparison to Goop's 40% discount, suggesting Meghan's margins were either healthier or, more likely, that deep discounting would expose how limited demand actually was. This was the context in which Meghan embraced Chrissy Teigen. Professional failure, cultural irrelevance, and a growing sense that the American dream she'd sold, independence from royal constraints combined with commercial success and social impact, had been exposed as fantasy. Teigen offered something valuable to Meghan in this moment, validation that the failure wasn't Meghan's fault. Together, they could reinforce a narrative where they were victims of unfair standards, canceled by a culture that demanded perfection, persecuted for daring to be authentic. The response was swift and decisive, at least in terms of public perception. When news of the friendship broke in December 2024, reactions split along familiar lines. Meghan's remaining supporters saw it as evidence of her loyalty and refusal to abandon people simply because they'd been cancelled. She chooses real people over perfect ones, they echoed, embracing the framing that Teigen's documented cruelty was somehow more real than treating vulnerable people with basic decency. Critics saw it as the final proof that Meghan had learned nothing from her own controversies. "Bullies unite" became a common refrain on social media. Royal commentator Brittany articulated what many were thinking. When it comes to Meghan and Chrissy, bullies unite together. Alleged bullies, you could say. They both have massive PR baggage. And Meghan always needs somebody to grift off of. What made the friendship particularly striking was its contrast with Meghan's treatment of other friends who'd faced scandal. Jessica Mulroney, who had been closer to Meghan than perhaps anyone outside her family, was cut off entirely after being accused of threatening Sasha Exeter's career in June 2020. Mulroney had been Meghan's stylist, her confidant, her daughter's bridesmaid at the royal wedding. But when controversy hit, Meghan ghosted her completely. The difference, observers noted, was that Mulroney's scandal involved race, and Meghan had positioned herself as a champion of racial justice. Distancing from Mulroney served Meghan's brand. Teigen's scandal involved bullying and cruelty, things Meghan had been accused of herself. Embracing Teigen sent a different message, that these allegations were overblown, that the women facing them were victims, that cancel culture had gone too far. But the friendship also revealed something else about both women: their isolation. Teigen had lost most of her celebrity friends after the bullying revelations. Kim Kardashian, who'd been close, distanced herself. Fashion designers who dressed her for events moved on. She'd become toxic in an industry that trades on association. Meghan's isolation was different but equally profound. She'd cut herself off from her family, with the exception of her mother Doria. She'd left the royal family in acrimony. She'd distanced from or been distanced by former friends and colleagues. Even in Montecito, a community of wealthy celebrities, she and Harry seemed to exist apart, rarely photographed with other power couples, rarely mentioned as part of the social scene. "Grifters unite," Brittany said, capturing the transactional nature of the friendship. "I'm sure they're using each other and can kind of lean on each other for both having massive public downfalls in many ways." Royal author Tom Quinn offered a more psychological analysis. "They've both built identities around being victims of systems that failed to appreciate them, Meghan with the monarchy, Teigen with celebrity culture. Neither can accept that perhaps the problem wasn't the system but their own behavior within it. Finding each other allows them to reinforce that victim narrative rather than engage in genuine self-reflection." As 2024 drew to a close, both women faced uncertain futures. Teigen's career showed no signs of rebounding. Her social media following, while still in the millions, was less engaged. Her cookbook sales had plummeted. John Legend's success continued, but it no longer extended to her by association. Meghan's prospects were, if anything, bleaker. The Netflix deal was expiring, with no indication of renewal. The Spotify partnership had already collapsed. American Riviera Orchard was failing to gain traction. And unlike Teigen, who could potentially rebuild through pure persistence, Meghan had burned the bridge that made her famous: the royal family. In early 2025, reports emerged that Prince William and Catherine would visit the United States in July for the 250th anniversary of American independence, while King Charles and Camilla were invited to Washington, D.C. for a state visit in April. Montecito-based Harry and Meghan were not on the guest list and wouldn't be invited to any celebrations. Obviously, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex aren't working royals, so they will not be invited to any celebrations, a source told the New York Post. Any invitation would have to come at the behest of the royal family themselves. The contrast was stark. When Harry and Meghan moved to California in 2020, they imagined themselves becoming the de facto American royals, the glamorous couple who bridged British tradition and California cool. Instead, the actual royals would be welcomed while they were ignored. The Trump administration, sources suggested, wanted the real royals, not the exiled ones trading on their royal connection while criticizing the institution. Meghan really thought they would come to the United States and be the royals of America, Brittany observed. But of course, we have all firmly rejected that assertion. It was delusional for Harry and Meghan in the first place to even think that. Against this backdrop of professional failure and cultural irrelevance, the friendship with Teigen takes on a desperate quality. These aren't two successful women choosing to support each other. These are two fallen stars clinging together, telling each other that the world is wrong about them, that history will vindicate them, that their authenticity matters more than their actions. Even in absence, their influence looms over certain conversations. Every article about cancel culture mentions Teigen. Every discussion of the monarchy's modernization includes Meghan. They remain reference points, cautionary tales, examples of how fame and influence can be squandered through a combination of poor judgment and unwillingness to accept accountability. Their voice lived on primarily in what they represented rather than what they produced. Teigen became shorthand for the danger of unfiltered social media presence, proof that just being honest doesn't excuse cruelty. Meghan became a case study in how wanting to change institutions isn't enough if you can't work within them, even temporarily, to build the credibility and relationships that enable change. Royal historian Hugo Vickers offered this assessment. Both women wanted to have things both ways. Teigen wanted to be cruel but beloved. Meghan wanted royal prestige without royal duty. When you demand that level of cognitive dissonance from the public, eventually the public stops playing along. The legacy question is complicated by the fact that both women's stories are ongoing. Teigen is still married to legend, still raising her children, still posting occasionally on social media. She could, theoretically, rebuild if she demonstrated genuine growth and sustained changed behavior. But her friendship with Meghan suggests she's more interested in validation than transformation. Meghan's legacy is even more complex. She did break barriers as the first biracial woman to marry into the modern British royal family. She did speak openly about mental health struggles and feeling unsupported. She did challenge certain protocols and traditions. But she also left after less than 2 years, monetized her grievances extensively, and showed little recognition of her own role in the conflicts she described. The tragedy, noted constitutional expert Vernon Bogdanor, is that Meghan could have been transformative. A biracial American actress bringing a different perspective to the monarchy could have been exactly what the institution needed to stay relevant, but it required patience, humility, and a willingness to learn from those with institutional knowledge. Meghan wanted revolution on her timeline, and when she didn't get it, she burned everything down. As for their friendship's legacy, it may ultimately be remembered as a perfect encapsulation of a particular moment in celebrity culture. Two women who built brands on authenticity were revealed to be less than their carefully crafted images suggested. Rather than accepting this and growing, they found each other and created an echo chamber where they could remain the heroes of their own stories. Royal biographer Penny Junor put it bluntly, "Birds of a feather flock together." When you're accused of bullying and you embrace someone else accused of bullying, when you claim to be a victim while treating others poorly and you befriend someone with the same pattern, you're telling us who you really are. We should listen. In Mauritius, far from Montecito and Manhattan, Chelsea Davy was building a quiet life. Harry's ex-girlfriend, the woman many believed was his true love, had married hotelier Sam Cutmore-Scott and had 2 children. In December 2024, she shared rare family photos showing a life of genuine contentment, beach days with her kids, intimate family moments, the kind of privacy and normalcy that Harry once claimed to want. Chelsea really loved Harry for Harry, Brittany reflected. She was not attached to the title and the trappings of royalty. She loved him for him. And she was the one who got away, the person who royals are always searching for. Someone actually invested in you, not just the titles and influence you hold. The contrast between Chelsea's life and Meghan's was impossible to ignore. One woman had walked away from royal connections to build something genuine. The other had walked away from royal duties while desperately clinging to royal relevance. One was thriving in obscurity, the other was failing in the spotlight. She dodged a bullet, was how many characterized Chelsea's decision not to marry Harry. She really did dodge a bullet, and she's got true happiness now, and she's much better off without him. As 2025 began, Meghan Markle and Chrissy Teigen's friendship stood as a monument to a particular kind of modern delusion, the belief that narrative control matters more than actual behavior, that being real means never having to say you were genuinely wrong, that victimhood is a permanent status that excuses all sins. They have found in each other exactly what they were looking for, not accountability or growth, but affirmation and alliance. Two mean girls reunited, not to apologize to those they've hurt, but to comfort each other in their shared conviction that they were the ones who were wronged. The question now is whether anyone still cares, whether their alliance matters to a world that has largely moved on, whether two falling stars can stop their descent by holding on to each other, or whether they'll simply pull each other down faster. What do you think? Is this friendship proof that Meghan Markle hasn't learned from her controversies, or is she simply refusing to abandon someone who's been canceled? Are these two women genuine victims of unrealistic standards, or are they bullies who finally found each other? And what does this alliance tell us about accountability, growth, and the difference between being real and being cruel? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on all the latest royal developments and celebrity scandals, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. The story of Meghan and Chrissy is far from over, and we'll be here to cover every lunch in Montecito, every failed product launch, every desperate attempt to reclaim relevance that once seemed so assured.